All right. We're all beginning here. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's March 19th SBCAG board meeting. For the record, my name is David Silva, and I'm the vice chair on the SBCAG board. Madam Clerk, please facilitate roll call.
Director Rouse?
Here.
Director Perotti?
Here.
Director Mosby?
Here.
Director Lee?
Here.
Director Lavanino? Director Julian?
Here.
Director Hartman? Perfect. Director Clark?
Here.
Director Capps absent. Director Brown?
Here.
Director Aguilera Hernandez?
Here.
Vice Chair Silva?
Here.
And Chair Nelson absent.
Thank you very much. If everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll move on to public comment. Public comment period for items not on today's agenda. Speakers have up to 3 minutes each, with a total of 15 minutes allotted for public comment. Is there any public comment today?
If there are any members of the public on Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand feature and I will call upon you. And there are no responses, and we did not receive any public comment in advance for the general public comment.
Splendid. We're moving right along. Now we will move on to closed session. Is there any public comment, or if there is anyone who'd like to make public comment, provided in advance for this item?
If there are any members of the public on Zoom who wish to speak to closed session, would you please use the raise hand feature and I will call upon you? There was no written public comment received, and there are no speakers on Zoom who wish to speak.
All right, then we'll just look to our counsel to be able to read us into closed session.
Chair and directors, today the board is agendized to discuss 2 items in closed session. The first item is the executive director performance evaluation. The second item is conference with labor negotiators. The employee is the executive director. The agency designated representatives are Vice Chair Silva and Council McKenzie.
Great. We will move into closed session at this time. Oh, thank you there we go. Now we're back on. Okay, we're all back online here. Thank you, everybody, for rejoining us. Is there any readout that we can have from our council from closed session at this time?
Chair and directors, today the board met in closed session to discuss 2 items, the executive director performance evaluation and labor negotiations, and the board took no reportable action.
All right, thank you very much. We will now move on to our consent calendar. If there are any announcements for the consent calendar at this time?
There are no announcements for the consent calendar.
And is there any public comment, or if any public comment was provided in advance for these items?
There was public comment received in advance for item 5D from Eileen Monahan, Robin Donaldson, Jeff, and Jason Nelson on behalf of the Oak Tree Company. Those comments were distributed to the board and placed online. If there are any members of the public on Zoom who wish to speak at this time, would you please use the raise hand feature and I will call upon you. And there are no responses.
Okay. Are there any directors who would like to pull any item at this time? All right, seeing none, is there anyone who would like to make a motion?
So moved, Julian.
Second.
Whoever.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Could we do a roll call vote, please?
Director Rouse?
Aye.
Director Perotti? Aye. Director Mosby?
Aye.
Director Lee?
Aye.
Director Lavanino?
Aye.
Director Julian?
Aye.
Director Hartman?
Aye.
Director Clark?
Aye.
Director Capps absent. Director Brown?
Aye.
Director Aguilera Hernandez?
Aye.
Vice Chair Silva?
Aye.
And Chair Nelson absent. Motion passes.
All right, we'll now move on to item 6A. Madam Clerk, will you please read item 6A into the record?
Regional broadband update. Receive a presentation from staff from the Broadband Consortium of the Pacific Coast and Digital Equity Commission on regional broadband efforts.
Good morning, Vice Chair Silva, Fred Luna of SBCAG staff, Director of Project Delivery and Construction. So today's presentations would become about a biannual update on broadband initiatives and efforts that are going on in Santa Barbara County. For today's presentation, I'm joined by Shelby Arthur of the Broadband Consortium, and we'll be splitting the presentation updates. And try to go through this.
I'm so sorry, if we could pause. I think we're getting feedback on, okay, thank you very much.
Are we ready to go? Yeah, thank you. So just a quick outline of what we plan on covering today. I think it's always good to revisit where we've been, and so reminding the board that in 2022, this board approved a broadband strategic plan. I'll go into some of those details of what that was, what the goals were in that. We were able to obtain a $1 million grant in partnership with the county under the local agency technical assistance. So I'll discuss the progress that we've made on that, and that is now completed. And then quickly, a middle mile update. That's the statewide middle mile, the major trunk lines that are going to serve the region and the entire state. And regional priorities. So we're going to cover some updates on local projects, how we're fulfilling those needs that were in the broadband strategic plan through either private investment, public investment, or work with our partners. And lastly, we have a quick update on one of our priority areas. The BCPC has done some work in the Cuyama area, and so Shelby's going to report out on some of that outreach effort and how that relates to future broadband. And then she has an update on other broad BCPC activities going on. Just so to revisit real quick, the Broadband Strategic Plan approved in 2022, so we're going into our 4th year of that document, and we've discussed with the board opportunities perhaps to revisit or retool that. Not primarily that priorities have changed, but that it's a continually changing environment from technology standpoint, perhaps the environment or how projects get implemented. And so that would be nice, and data gathering too, making sure the data that we had originally is still representing the priorities that we need to fulfill. Statewide middle mile collaboration and collaboration with partners I'll touch on as I get through the presentation. So one of the successes we've had early on in implementing goals from the Broadband Strategic Plan were the BSP, I'll refer to it as, outlined essentially the scope that was used to develop an application grant to fund 3 priority tasks. One of those being establishing a regional joint powers authority for broadband implementation and planning, looking at opportunities for designing last mile networks to connect to those critical areas in the county that needed to be served, and then developing an overall environmental framework for those typical type projects that were to be built. And on that last level, we were able to use some synergies with our partnership with the Golden State Connect Authority, who was doing the design, to include not just typical installations, but some more detailed evaluation of priority locations, so that those are even further evolved and ready to be implemented should there be a private or public investment in that area. This slide just is a quick reminder of how we get from that global network to the areas that need to be served. And so the middle mile is something that we talk about a lot as far as from the state perspective. There obviously is middle mile that exists out there right now that is developed and implemented and maintained by mostly private investment, but it's an expensive endeavor. So under legislation, the state committed to establishing a middle mile network statewide, and they're making progress on that. I think their original goal was to ready to connect by the end of this year. We'll see if that happens, but I have a report on that progress later in the slide. And then those last mile connections, how do we get to those areas that need to be served? Households, anchor institutions, which are schools, emergency centers, healthcare facilities are still the priority, and how we can say that we've fulfilled the goals of the BSP. This slide describes the work that has been done by the California Department of Technology. That's the department at the statewide level that's implementing the middle mile network. And so what you see here, I'll start at there's really 2 efforts that are underway in Santa Barbara County. There's a blue line and an orange line. So I'll start with the orange line. So this is being done by CDT, that's this California Department of Technology. I'll refer to them as CDT. From the south, they're partnering with a common name in fiber optics, Lumen, and so that work is underway and 36% complete. The method for that work is that they're using existing conduit, installing broadband in there. They're working from my understanding is working from the south to the north. They are, we know that most of that work is being done probably at night, and they look to have that complete by this spring, I believe. We'll see if that part gets done. That's through June, so. Let me get my slides here. And then the blue line is another connection. That's another connection point from the Central Valley. It's called the Central Valley Integrated Networks, that's CVIN. So basically, it's coming into Santa Barbara County from the east on Highway 166. There's been a lot of discussion about this through the Cuyama area and a lot of questions. And then you can see how it's traveling over to the west to Highway 101. From there, it splits going north and south. As it's headed south, it heads through Santa Maria, I believe, like on highway, near or on Highway 135, down through 135 to Los Alamos, and then back onto 101, down to Highway 154, and then 246. And that may look odd, that little spur connection there, but that's essentially to serve the Chumash tribe, who was awarded a grant for last mile networks, and we have a slide on that next. But it was a goal of the Middle Mile Initiative to make sure that the middle mile established by CDT was able to serve all those award projects. There's also an effort done in conjunction with Caltrans to build 4 major huts or hubs, as they call them. These are connection points. They kind of provide backup. They're climate-controlled units. Obviously, it's important to make sure that the network stays online, and so those are usually segregated by 50 to 75 miles on any type of network. I'll just brush through this real quickly. This is how those projects would get implemented. Starting on the left there, we get our priorities from our BSP, very typical through the planning process, revisiting those priorities. And then we seek funding to implement those projects. Then we go through that traditional environmental design and permitting phase of a project. And then the last thing would be done, it would be to construct and then make it ready to connect, so where you're providing that service to critical priority locations. This is the federal funding account update on the Chumash Tribe project. Both Shelby and I have been in discussions with David Fine, who represents the tribe. He gave us a nice update on their project. They're very excited about the work that's going on, both on the reservation and in the future Camp 4 development. Basically, what they're doing under the federal funding account grant that they got for $4.7 million is to create those last mile connections. So they're already ahead of the middle mile coming in and making sure that they're ready to connect to the middle mile when it's planned to come in at the end of this calendar year. They've also had discussions with a provider who would provide service, and subscribers would be able to get in line and work toward getting that service. And then you see there's approximately 400 locations and 853 residents that would be served by those connections. As far as advocacy and planning, one of the things I'd like to mention here is that we are working toward continuing to look at that federal funding account of a block of funds that was allocated at a statewide level, and then every county got a formula share. And only the Chumash was able to receive an award, but Santa Barbara County had about $15 million. So there remains about $10 million that is unallocated. It's yet to be seen whether that would be available through the same formula process or redistributed, but recently we sent a letter to have the state consider reallocating that to our priority locations. We checked back in with our partner at Golden State Connect Authority. Our award applications are still intact. They may need to be refreshed, but we'd be ready to go to implement those projects. On the federal level, and I know there's a trip next week, working with Margie and Lauren, one of the things that's still on our broadband platform, or our platform, is that ways to fund planning efforts to update maybe our broadband strategic plan or look at other priorities. And at this point, I'll hand it over to Shelby, and she'll carry it forward.
Thank you, Fred. Shelby Arthur. I coordinate the Broadband Consortium Pacific Coast for the Tri-County area, including Santa Barbara County, San Luis Obispo, and Ventura counties. So today I'll provide just a quick overview of some recent updates connected to our work in Santa Barbara County. In October 2025, CPUC's CASIF grant, California Advanced Services Fund, grant program closed the cycle of the infrastructure grant application, which provides funds to public or private or nonprofit organizations to deploy broadband to last mile locations that do not have adequate service already. So we were very delighted to have at least one application for Santa Barbara County, east of the 154, encompassing some of Los Livos and Santa Ynez, in the rural areas where they tend to not have infrastructure. We believed that we will hear the result on that application in the next month, potentially in May, as late as May, but we're very optimistic about that. There are grant cycles for CASIF accounts that have been approved to be offered through 2032. So that is a state fund. It is not impacted by changes at the federal government level, and it has been authorized through 2032. Some of the other funds that are available through CASF include the FFA, Federal Funding Account, grants, which also focus on deployment to last mile. Also public housing grant funds to help wire folks who are living in public housing facilities, and the adoption account, CASF adoption account, which helps to get low-income individuals online by providing broadband access centers, also by providing digital literacy, so people can use the internet connection once it's available to them. On a federal level, NTIA is overseeing the BEAD program. There's been some changes over the last year to that BEAD program, but we were happy to see that the state of California submitted their final proposal in December 2025, which awarded 3 different internet service providers funds to provide service in Santa Barbara County. This has not been approved by NTIA yet. We don't know the timeline of approval. I think we're among the last states. I think there's 3 more states that also don't have approval yet, but we took a very long time to really look at all the locations and the applications. You'll see on the map here provided, the pink area to the east of the 101 in North County has been awarded to Comcast. Their low-cost plan offering is at $30 a month, so they will be able to provide service to folks in that area who are income eligible for that dollar amount. The blue swath over the rest of the county was awarded to SpaceX for satellite service. Their low-cost plan is at $80 a month. And then there is a single location that I identified I think, between Goleta and Santa Barbara that was awarded to Amazon Kuiper for satellite. It's unclear to me what their larger plan is, but I know that organization submitted a statewide application, so it's part of a bigger package. Oops.
I do have a question.
Sure.
Regarding the SpaceX satellite, the blue area, the low-cost plan is $80 a month. Has that been confirmed, or do they have lower plans?
That is what's listed on the BEAD website that indicates what the awards are.
Thank you.
Okay, so one of the special areas that was identified in the Broadband Strategic Plan and that the Broadband Consortium continues to focus on is providing adequate service in the Cuyama Valley. During this past CASF infrastructure grant cycle, we were dismayed because the Cuyama Valley locations did not have a lot of eligibility for funding through CASF infrastructure grant. Now, when we talk to community members, they remind us we still do not have adequate service out here. And we have actually been fortunate enough to coordinate a lot with the Blue Sky Center because they employ 2 AmeriCorps representatives who are part of the Connected Core program that specifically focus on broadband deployment. And we were not able to contest those locations during this grant cycle, but what we opted to do is to work with Blue Sky Center to conduct a census-style survey and send community members to their neighbors' doors to knock on the door and talk to them about their internet connections, and then also complete a speed test. With the limited funds that we had in this last cycle and with the amount of time that we had to complete the survey, the AmeriCorps representatives were able to reach 75 locations, or receive 75 responses. They are targeting 240 in both Cuyama and New Cuyama. And their findings included a verification that most locations are not served by internet access that exceeds 30 megabits per second. This is enough to maybe conduct some email, but if you have more than one person trying to access the internet at the same time, it can begin to really compromise the bandwidth available and slow down the connections. The locations that are served by satellite in Cuyama do exceed 70 megabits per second. So that solution does seem to be an option in that area. My concern and our concern as a consortium is that low-cost planned threshold, right? Is it affordable? Maybe it's available, is it affordable? So we are continuing to work with Blue Sky Center. We're continuing to focus on validating the actual speeds experienced for Cuyama community members. And we have engaged the Santa Barbara Foundation to match the investment that we made into that survey so that they can, Blue Sky Center can continue to survey their neighbors. So I believe that by June, we'll have a more robust response rate. And then I'm just going to close up two of our regional organizations, Broadband Consortium Pacific Coast and the Digital Equity Coalition for Santa Barbara County. SBCAG is very involved in both organizations, and we have stakeholders that span private, public, and nonprofit entities that are all working together to close the digital divide in Santa Barbara County. The Broadband Consortium Pacific Coast, our grant ends basically this month, next month, but we did submit an application for renewed funding. Thank you to SBCAG for your letter of support, and as well as some of our other offices who submitted letters for us. We are expecting to hear by June whether the funding will be dispersed, and we will resume work hopefully in July, where we'll be able to continue offering support and conducting work to improve deployment efforts across the county. I will also just add that AB 2279 is going up for a hearing at the state level next week. It moved very fast to this point, and that is a request to authorize CPUC to grant additional funds to regional broadband consortia so that we can actually continue to tie in adoption efforts with deployment efforts. It would award funds with a baseline that is already established, and then an increased amount based on the number of low-income and number of unconnected households in our county. The Digital Equity Coalition for Santa Barbara County is currently, the co-chairs are from the Santa Barbara Foundation and the American GI Forum. And we've had a great showing of a number of maybe 15 to 18 organizations that are serving on the steering committee this year. We've broken out into 3 committees, one of which is advocacy. SBCAG has been really involved in that, as well as our projects and partnerships committee. So we are moving forward towards collaborating across organizations to improve digital literacy offerings and connections to low-cost plans for low-income families. The Digital Equity Coalition Summit this year is on April 30th at the Goleta Community Center. We invite all of you to attend. I'm sure you'll receive formal invitations from the Santa Barbara Foundation. And we are excited about the agenda this year. We have 2 presentations. The first will be on this, an updated take on the state of the digital divide in Santa Barbara County. So we currently know that about almost 8% countywide of residents are not connected to the internet and don't have a device and can't use it. And that's based on the ACS 2024 update. What we have done is we've engaged Dr. Demouy, Dr. Jamshid Demouy, to update his State of the Digital Divide study that he completed in 2021 in order to update numbers at the zip code level. So we will then have data for all of our representatives about what's going on in your actual communities. So we'll receive an update from him, and then we'll also receive a presentation from Dr. Elizabeth Belding at UC Santa Barbara, who conducted a study on the status of mobile phone broadband access, both the reported speeds and the actual experience speeds across our county. So we can kind of see where people are using the smartphones or accessing the internet through cell phone coverage. There is a legislative advocacy tracker that we are posting on the DEC website. I encourage you to check it out if you have any questions about what we're advocating for in terms of statewide and federal digital equity initiatives. And that's it for me. If you have any questions, I'm sure Fred or I can help answer them.
All right, we'll bring it to questions right now. Director Brown?
Thank you, Shelby. There we go. Go back a couple of slides, if you will, that map with the pink area for Comcast, and then the SpaceX satellite blue. Is that an overlay, or is that exclusive to those two different companies? Meaning, I see that the pink is Comcast, but is that an overlay on the SpaceX?
It's distinct and separate.
They're distinct, they're separate, mutually
Correct.
exclusive of one another,
Correct.
in their own licensed areas,
Well,
geographically, or?
anyone can still subscribe to satellite if they want, but SpaceX is not receiving funding from NTIA to specifically ensure that service reaches the pink splotch. Comcast is receiving
you.
funding.
And then, Fred, you'd mentioned 4 hubs that were coming, 4 distinct hubs for the project. Do you have an expectation as where those will be located?
Yeah, I just got off the phone yesterday with a quick update on that with our partners at CDT. So there's one in the along Highway 1 in the Guadalupe area. There's one on Highway 166. They don't have these posted on the website, but and that's at least what I've heard. That's going to be co-located with the Caltrans maintenance yard on Highway 166, and then there's 2 on the south coast for serving that orange line, the Lumen facilities. Not sure where those are. I recall one being closer to Ventura County, and then one up the Gaviota coast.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Any other questions here? Any questions in Santa Maria?
I got a comment here.
Okay, Director Mosby.
So just looking at Starlink system update, they are offering $39 a month with no hardware costs until March of 31. They didn't have a speed rate on that, but they are offering 100 MIPS for $50 a month, unlimited data. And they do cover all service areas, so just an update.
Thank you, that's great news.
Any other questions in Santa Maria? I had one. I just wanted to check, and it was going back to the Cuyama area focus. Could you maybe take a little time to explain to me how it could be designated as properly served? I'm just confused. What would be the criteria that would make someone think Cuyama's properly served?
So the CPUC staff analyzes the broadband serviceable locations to determine if they have 25 megabit per second service. And they use FCC data that is reported by the ISPs to the FCC, where the ISPs say, we serve this location. We have infrastructure to this location. So the different types of infrastructure are maybe copper cable, which is the antiquated structure we're trying to replace, cable, which is adequate until there's too many people on it, and then it doesn't have as high of a capacity as fiber optic. And then fiber optic, we know, can provide serviceable speeds, basically to a wide variety of locations. Now, my estimate, my best guess here is that CPUC received some data from the FCC that showed that service was available potentially at 30 megabits per second, and so it was considered serviced. I don't have that in writing from CPUC, but I believe that's how they calculate their eligibility.
It's self-reported by the internet service provider.
And it's reported by the internet service providers, yeah.
Self-reported?
Yeah. They provide the information for the mapping, and so you can see that there may be a conflict there on the ultimate back end of service user.
And it is possible to challenge the data, but you need actual speed tests from the locations that are taken and submitted to the FCC or to CPUC in order to challenge that data.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Is there any public comment on this item?
If there are any members of the public who wish to speak, would you please use the raise hand feature and I will call upon you. I did not receive any paper request to speak forms, and there are no attendees on Zoom who wish to speak.
Is there any board discussion before moving on to the next item?
Just a comment. I do agree with you, Director Silva, that Cuyama is not getting the right service for internet. If you go up there and out, can you come to the podium? Did you or your team go up and ask the community about the service?
So they have actually a community broadband committee,
Right.
informal, that is convened through Blue Sky Center, through their connected core, and we have heard from them directly that there is not adequate service. And through this survey, the 70 households that were reached confirmed the majority of them do not have adequate service.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. And we are going to continue this effort. We have to establish the baseline with CPUC in order to make those locations eligible for subsidized funding to entice a broadband provider to build in that area because it's such a small community. Does that make sense?
It does. So just a little background. So after school, Koreama gets a dip in internet service because all the kids go home and start playing video games. So it's the worst time for business to process credit cards or anything. So it's very inconsistent. So I'm glad that you understand that.
Yeah, and that's because the technology doesn't have the capacity to serve all of those users at the same time.
Right.
If we could get some fiber provider to go into Kuyama, there would be additional capacity available for multiple users like that.
And I believe that's kind of a key next step. You saw the update that the trunk line's coming in from the middle mile network. And so working together so that we can work with private internet service providers and maybe, because they're not localized to any particular region. They can compete with one another, bring another service provider that can provide better service.
I agree. I was just wanting to say that I think that whatever this board or this organization can do to help with verifying, challenging the data that's being provided for that, because I do have to say, I agree with you. If you've ever been in Kuyama, you're never like, boy, this is where I get all my good internet streaming done. It really is not the place for that. So if there's any means for us to assist with that outreach and how to help get Kuyama's needs met, please, I think this board needs to really advocate on their behalf.
I think what I will do is follow up with the Blue Sky Center, and perhaps we can put together a public announcement that you can share through your channels when the survey resumes, so that it's more broadly advertised.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, this was a presentation only, so no action required. We'll move on now to item 6B. Madam Clerk, will you please read item 6B into the record?
Highway 101, Carpinteria to Santa Barbara Corridor Update. Recommended action, receive a presentation of progress on construction in the Highway 101, Carpinteria to Santa Barbara project and other parallel project efforts in the corridor.
Okay, thank you. Again, good morning, Vice Chair Silva and directors. So today's presentation on Highway 101 is intentionally timed to coincide with what's going to be in about a few weeks, the start of construction on our last segment of Highway 101, the Santa Barbara North segment. So that's indeed a huge milestone, reaching completion or anticipated completion for the 11-mile corridor between Carpinteria and Santa Barbara. We've been conducting some outreach. As a second phase, I believe we left you a pamphlet, a construction overview guide that describes the first year of construction and detours, and then a mailer was sent to the community just so that we did have a community meeting. I want to thank Director Rouse for being there in support on Tuesday, and so that was kind of culminating some of the outreach efforts that we had conducted leading up to the start of work. Since we were awarded funding, as you all remember, last summer, that was a huge milestone to get the project fully funded. There's been a lot of good work done at by the project team to get the package ready for construction. That included, finishing up all the final design and the right-of-way and the utilities and obtaining permits and working with our local agency partners on that. So today's presentation will cover the anticipated construction. It'll also go over some of the local parallel projects that are being done in combination with the 101 improvements, and then talk about specifically some of our public outreach that what we've heard from the community. So this slide is just kind of a big, in one picture, snapshot of work we've done, work that's underway, and what's left to be done. So on the far right, the green bar, those are completed segments. That's the 7 of 11 miles that we've completed in the corridor. And then the remaining three segments in orange there that are called in construction, that's the 2 segments in Montecito, so 2 construction contracts, and then a portion of the segment in Santa Barbara. That constitutes another 2 miles. And then lastly, what is the last segment, Santa Barbara North. What we're showing here is just kind of an update on, we complete a highway segment. We basically split it up into discernible pieces. The main component for the public's benefit is opening it to traffic. So you can see there that the first 3 segments from Carpinteria, Padaro, and Summerlin are all complete. We celebrated that a year ago, opening the HOV lanes, so that constitutes those 7 miles. But we've also completed the follow-on work related to landscaping. That's important as well, because it's really part of our commitment to the community to make it through the permitting process and fulfilling the landscape requirements. And then associated with that is usually kind of a maintenance period where the project team monitors the landscaping. So you can see that's completed in Carpinteria, but still underway in the other 2 segments, and then we'll finally reach a closeout for those. Moving to the north, this describes the current construction work that's ongoing. So I mentioned before, this really is, through Montecito, that work is 2 separate contracts, and then in Santa Barbara, it's a contract from up to Hermosillo. And why did we do that? You know, that may be the question. So following the approval of funding for Cycle 1, in Cycle 2, and we try to forget this, but we didn't get any money for that. So we really had to develop a different strategy on how we were going to implement those projects, breaking them up into more fundable packages and more implementable packages. So we really tested the project team through the construction manager, general contractor approach. What can we do with what money we had available? And early on, before we were awarded our Cycle 3 funds, we were able to combine money from the state through the SHOP. That's the State Highway Operation and Protection Program, I believe. And then we added some Measure A money. And then later we were able to get $7 million from Congressman Carbajal to help that out, to advance work. And that was really important because we were able to include some widening in the Union Pacific right-of-way, and that allowed us to build the bridge construction in the Montecito area that's ready to be finished in 2 seasons versus 3. And we were combining efforts there, and the whole staging was brought together. This couldn't have been done if you had separate contracts. So that's just an important point. And working with the contractor, working with the design team to get that all integrated in that approach was good. What you're seeing here is kind of an aerial view looking south on the southbound lanes of 101. So you can see on the left-hand side of the photo, we have 2 lanes of traffic in each direction, as that was our commitment to the community to maintain 2 lanes of traffic. But you can see, it's narrow, it's constrained by a concrete barrier, but you can see the remaining area is almost as wide, if not as wider than where the traffic is. That's going to be the ultimate width for the freeway to accommodate full shoulders in most areas, the 3 lanes, with 1 being an HOV lane. And all that bridge construction work is going on in sequence, but along the same timing, and so over the 2 years. The bridges were completed. They're already paving the concrete, and so that's scheduled for a big traffic switch at the end of May. That's really our last major milestone on this segment of construction, where you would switch traffic, and then the remaining work will be in the median and the other work associated with the project regarding final striping and those types of things. So that's really something that we've been pointing towards, and it's really coincide with the work that's upcoming also in the Santa Barbara North segment. Oh, I went the wrong direction. Here you go. So just an update quickly. As many of you know on the board, that 101 includes a lot of parallel improvements that were required through our commitment with our local agency partners and also the coastal permitting. As part of Cycle 1 awards, these 9 projects, I believe, 8 projects were funded, and they were either included as part of 101 improvements or separately funded. And so you can see the status there. 5 of the 8 are complete. The other 3 are in construction. We've reported that to both our local agency partners. We've also reported that to the state, so we're making good progress on that. The 3 that are in construction are looking to be, at least the last 2, Villarreal and Wallace, at the bottom there of the table, will be completed this year. And then the Santa Claus Lane Phase 2 is going to start construction by the county this year. Moving up to Santa Barbara and Montecito, again, there was some additional parallel projects that have been packaged with our State 1 Cycle SB1 applications, or separately funded. In the case of the 2 roundabouts, SBCAG used some of its local money from the 101 reserve to fund those projects because it was important that they got built prior to the 101 improvements being in place. We needed that traffic circulation benefit to provide while the detours were in place with the 101 work. And so those were done and have been completed. The city also completed a roundabout at Los Patos and Cabrillo. So those key traffic circulation nodes have been done as we start work in that part of the corridor. And then the 2 remaining projects are being led by the city of Santa Barbara at the bottom of the table. The railroad crossing at Cabrillo, that's in design, and then the Milpas corridor improvements, that's in construction. So one of the things that we're embarking on is the start of construction on the Santa Barbara North. We've completed our 2nd phase of outreach. This rendering shows some of the work that has been done, will be done at the end of construction. You're looking from the, if you're familiar with this area, you're just south of the Hot Springs Roundabout. You're looking towards the new ramps at Cabrillo North. There's also a new ramp at off-ramp, Cabrillo northbound off-ramp, and a new northbound on-ramp that will be rebuilt, and then the new bridges that will be reconstructed, and a new roundabout that kind of consolidates all those ramps. And I'll try to, some of you have seen these presentations. This was part of our stakeholder outreach, but I'll go through this. And if you have any questions, please let me know. So the key improvements as part of the project is peak period carpool lanes. So we're fulfilling those 11 miles. We're adding those HOV lanes that are from morning and afternoon, 3 hours, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. in the afternoon. 2 new freeway bridges at Cabrillo Boulevard. We're removing those left-hand ramps. And that means that for about 2 years, ramps will be out of commission at that location. But then we'll have it open in 2028 with new ramps on the right-hand side. There's the permanent closure of the Los Patos off-ramp. That's well below standard. Improvements couldn't be made to that to keep it to standard. And then we're making freeway improvements to improve safety and sight distance and other features like lighting and new signage. One of the things we thought about in relation to this project was the fact that the footprint is so different between the before and after, is that we needed an effective tool to communicate how we were going to describe construction to the stakeholders and constituents, because where the freeway lanes might be now is where a ramp would be, and where an open space is, that's where the new freeway lanes are. So we thought, let's do a sequence rendering approach, and maybe that can guide them through. And it's been really effective in our stakeholder meetings to show that people can see stage by stage how the work is progressing over time. So you see there on the left, that's what it looked like last fall, before we even started any pre-construction work. The general configuration is, if you're all familiar with that, is that the freeway lanes, as I just mentioned, are separated by an open median. We have those left-hand median ramps, which are non-standard, and that's what we're trying to fulfill and accomplish. So on the right there, we needed to do some pre-construction work to remove vegetation. That was required because we needed to avoid impacts as a result of nesting birds or raptors, there's a 500-foot buffer zone so that if you identify any nest building, you have to stop construction. And that's not good on $100 and some million project. So that would cost time and money. Some of the first work that will be done when construction starts next month is the Los Patos ramp will be closed. You see that on the left. There's the railroad right adjacent to it, so that'll be immediately blocked off. Traffic will be moved over. And then on the right, you see there that this is kind of the overhead view of the Cabrillo northbound off-ramp will then be closed next. And then finally, the Cabrillo southbound off-ramp will be closed. And all those will be done between now and the end of May. And then we'll be able to start, with all the ramps closed and that open area available for bridge construction, we'll be able to start work on the bridge work. And so that, you can see there on the left, that open area, and then on the right, this is several months in advance. Having started bridge work in the summertime, we would have completed all the subsurface work, like the piles that would go in place, and those are drilled piles, not driven piles, and then a foundation, and then all the abutments to support the bridges that will be built. Then fast forwarding, we're moving through this construction fast. We have the, by the middle of 27, we're constructing the concrete paving, and then the bridge construction continues. So what you see there in the middle is the form work that's used, or the false work that's used to support the concrete for the deck and the superstructure, they call that. That's the driving surface that will ultimately serve for the 3 lanes. And then on the right there, you see work starts on the main lines. The bridges are complete on the right, but they're still only accommodating the 2 lanes of traffic. We're still got traffic shifted, and then we still need to build the ramps. And then moving along, we have the ramps under construction in 2028 in the spring. You can see there the 2 key southbound ramps on Cabrillo, and then the new Cabrillo northbound ramp that will go ultimately into the roundabout. And then, And then on that next slide to the right is you see the roundabout construction at Cabrillo underway, and other work. The ramps are now completed, open to traffic, and then we're finishing up the 101 work. So lastly, and this kind of shows the completed project, wanted to mention our current outreach efforts. We will be issuing a press release on the start of construction next week, likely. So that's looking at early April. We're still nailing down that date, but it's likely to be that first week in April. And then we've completed our second phase of outreach. We did an initial phase in November and December just to let folks know about the coming construction and any pre-construction work. There was it's a complicated project, so we wanted to kind of frame the issue and the timing leading up to the construction. And then we had a community meeting on Tuesday. I think we got about 20 to 25 individuals that attended. Well received as far as the comments. They understood the closures and the detours. We're appreciative that Cabrillo remains open for the most part. There will be some closures at night. We always will maintain 2 lanes of traffic on Highway 101. So, and then we asked for some follow-up. So I think that went well. So, lastly, as always, we have the SB Roads sign available, sbroads.com website available, and our hotline available for answering questions and any inquiries. And I'd be happy to answer any of your questions today.
Thank you very much for that. We'll bring it back to the board. Any questions at this time for staff? Director Lee?
Thank you. So I want to talk about outreach. Do you plan to hold additional meetings to talk about outreach and continue to work on that, making sure that you listen and get feedback from as many people as possible?
So we've completed our second phase of outreach. We're open to Occasionally, if there's changes or, if we know that something that needs to get done, we'll certainly go out and touch base with business owners or communities, or if you feel like there's a need that's not been met, Director Lee, we certainly can look into that.
I do. I feel there is a need, a strong need, that not just by monthly basis, just consistent, that you're open and available for local residents and businesses to be approached.
What we try to, and that's great. We would try to express is that there's always an open channel of communication there. We numbers are made available, info line. We try to get back to folks within a day of their concern, or at least say that we're following up with the project team on that. And so that's there. If that needs to be established with certain clientele, where please point us in that direction, and we can get them hooked up to make sure that they're receiving information.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any questions in Santa Maria? Okay, hearing.
No, thank you.
Great. Is there any public comment at this time?
If there are any members of the public on Zoom who wish to speak, would you please use the raise hand feature, and I will call upon you. There are no attendees on Zoom. However, I believe we might have one member of the public who wishes to speak.
Hi. So I have a store down in that post complex by the bird refuge that has been redeveloped over the last few years. And so the concern that we have is that when you are shutting down Los Patos in conjunction with this project, you're making it virtually impossible to get into that side of Montecito. And it just seems like an undue hardship on businesses located in that area, because it seems like now the only option is going to be to get off at Olive Mill and then cut all the way around and then come down Coast Village, which will be a massive traffic jam. And so my comment is there any way to keep Los Patos open for another year? I know it's not to code or something like that, but it's been like this forever. Like, it seems like that could really provide a lifeline for a lot of businesses, especially where we are, because we're going to get devastated by this, because people in Santa Barbara will not get off at Olive Mill and then sit in traffic to come back down Coast Village. This would have a really positive impact. If Los Patos stayed open, it would have a really positive impact on the traffic flow on Coast Village, and it would also have a really positive impact on the traffic flow getting into Cabrillo from the other side. So I guess that's my comment. I don't understand why Los Patos is getting closed. It's going to devastate a lot of our businesses.
Thank you very much. And if we make sure have you fill out a form, we have that for you for the public comment too. Okay. Thank you. Is there any other public comment this time?
There is no additional public comment.
All right, we'll bring it back to the board for any further discussion. Director Lee.
So, based on the comment by the speaker, is there a way we can delay Los Patos from being closed? Because those businesses are important to the community, and we want to ensure that none of them close. Is that something that we can look into?
I don't like to be in the position of saying no, but no, there really is no way. The way the project has been staged as to date, and is that if you remember the pictures that were shown, is that we have to get rid of those median ramps in order to build the bridges, and so without the median ramps, there certainly Los Patos could have remained open, but the state made a decision that because it's already a non-standard feature, they didn't want all traffic to be tempted to use that. It's really unsigned right now, and so it had been something that the standard for those ramps is around 16 feet, and so it's like at 12 feet. So it's 4 feet below. We've had incidents there that occur with trucks hitting the railroad structure, and so not only does that concern traffic on 101, but it also stops some inspections of the bridge and rail traffic, and so there's complications with even that consideration. So the team decided that it would be best to just close it immediately and then develop a alternative strategy. The comment about Spring Road, so we have to have official detours, and then there's also other ways to get to Cabrillo Boulevard if they're coming from Santa Barbara, and this may not be attractive to them, but you could get off at Milpas and then just take Cabrillo to the post, and so that would be another option.
So why can't we just put a no truck sign exiting out Los Patos? I mean, it seems simple. Look, I get it. The freeway is important, but to me, these businesses are more important. So we have to continue to do what we can to ensure that we serve them and at the same time. So I'm just asking that we do more than just what we're proposing right now. So I know it's this conversation, but I just asking the board. Randy, you understand? You're a businessman, and you were there at the thing, and just let's try harder. Yeah, fair enough. It's not a question, just saying.
Anyone in Santa Maria at this time?
No, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. This is a presentation only with no action. We will now move on to item 6C. Madam Clerk, will you please read item 6C into the record?
Draft SBCAG fiscal year 26-27 overall work program and budget. Recommended action, review, and comment on the draft fiscal year 26-27 SBCAG overall work program and budget, which will be considered for adoption at the April 16, 2026 board meeting.
I'm sorry. Am I okay to start?
Please do.
Okay. Mr. Chairperson, members of the committee or the board, in the interest of time, I know you have an air-district meeting in 40 minutes or 45 or 50 minutes. I suggest that we skip the beginning part and just go to the numbers. Is that okay with the board? Okay.
Like it's, yeah.
So we'll start at slide 11. Keep going, keep going. Just because I want to give a plug to our 60th anniversary. SBCAG is turning 60, and we want to celebrate that. So we did revise our logo to identify that as a milestone for the agency, and we'll be having a celebration of this board, of the agency in October. So I just want to give a plug for that. So moving on to our numbers, we have, this is a summary of all the budgets that SBCAG manages. It's $89 million. It's a little bit less than it was last year because of our cash flow and the projects that are going to be implementing. So majority of the reduced expenditures and budget capacity is in the Measure A program, but this is just a summary to show you overall what we are managing throughout the year. Moving on, I think Director Perotti asked this a few years back, how much funding is discretionary that comes into the agency. So we do identify that every year just to show that we are aggressively pursuing other grant sources for the agency and to implement our projects. And so we have over 30 million, almost 31 million of discretionary grants coming into the agency. And on the other side of that coin is our formula money. This is the money that we get in every year to basically pay our staff and do what we do or we're required to do. And so this is increasing. So in the past, we did not have SB1 funding or the Surface Transportation Block Grant funding and some other transit funding. So now we're expanding our capacity and we're getting additional funding to support our staff in implementing those programs. So this is healthy for the agency. This helps the budget and our foundation of our funding sources. So we're up to almost $5 million in formula funding coming into the agency. And really, this pays for the bread and butter of our agency, the staff. Okay? So another question, I think, again, I'm going to give credit to Perotti. You asked, how much money do we manage that is not included in the budget? This is the money that's passed through to the various jurisdictions, and this is very hard to capture because there's just so much that we touch, and this board makes decisions on how funding is allocated. But we gave it the college try, and we estimate about $145 million comes through this board as decisions of allocating funding to the jurisdictions for street and road, transit, and other purposes, transportation related, and you can see the list there. So now we're getting into the nuts and bolts of the budget, basically what funds the agency and how we move things forward. As you can see, the majority of our budget is funded through state and federal resources. So we get that formula money that I just mentioned to pay for our staff, and that's half of our budget. So if something happened at the state or federal level, I'm mostly concerned about the federal level, that would be a big hit to the agency, and this would be a concern for me and our staff of how to solve that. But I have some other slides on what if something happened at the federal level and we did not get our federal resources. So, but as you can see, we do charge for other services. So other budgets that I talk about today contribute to our general fund to pay our staff to work on those other things that we're going to be talking about today. And then our local sales tax is a major chunk, and that is our Transportation Development Act planning dollars that we get from the statewide sales tax. It's a 1/4 cent. We take that off the top, as well as Measure A, which we also take a percentage. So moving on our expenses, you can see our salaries or benefits are over half of our budget, of our general fund budget anyway. And so the other half is services and supplies and direct costs to implement what we have going. A lot of the direct costs are also passed through because we were the recipient of a grant, so we have to actually take hold of that funding and request reimbursement and what have you, and then pass it through. So you see the REAP 2.0 pass-through, that's $1 million, and some other grants, the River Trail, the AI Bike Map, fair promotions. These are really pass-through, but they come through our budget because we were the lead agency of getting that grant, so we have to be the fiduciary responsibility of making sure it's spent appropriately. So moving on, I just want to give you a summary of the staff and benefits. We are not proposing any increase in staff this year. We think we got it covered, 20 full-time staff positions, and really that's been consistent. Maybe we've added a staff here or there over the years, but we've been around the 19, 20, 21 number of staff throughout my tenure at SBCAG. There is a 5.4% increase. This includes the 3% COLA that was based on the CPI. I don't round up, I don't round down. It's a 3-point COLA based on that CPI. And then included in that 5.4% is also the merit increases. If an employee's topped out, they do not get that merit increase, but if they are eligible, we assume that in the budget, but that will be based on performance. And then there's the implementation of the classification and compensation study that the board approved last year, or I think fall of this past year. And so we're still implementing that as we go. And so that's included in the 5.3%, or excuse me, 5.4%. So the COLA, it actually costs $93,000, $93,045, just to let you know. Okay, moving on, just to give you an overview of our staff. We are very small but mighty. I like to say we're the small agency that does big things. And just a few photos of the happy faces of people doing their jobs and getting things done. So moving on to the other budgets that we administer, it's the Safe Authority for Freeway Emergencies. This is $1 that we collect per vehicle registration, and this is to implement the call box program as well as our transportation demand management program. So we're expecting a $778,000 in revenue over the next fiscal year, and then the expenditures are excuse me, here's the, oops, did I skip ahead here? The expenditures, there we are, okay, is a little bit on staff support, and then the call box program, the expenses associated with that. We still have 50 or so call boxes out there. Whether or not they're being used remains to be seen, but they are locators for people to say, oh, I'm near callbacks 120 when they're calling on their cell phone, but yeah. So we may want to think about that in the future of eliminating the rest of them to be able to use these funds for other things. But we are using the majority of the funds to support our transportation demand management program, which is allowable under the law. So that is supporting our promotion of alternative modes on the highways and our streets and roads. Moving on to the Clean Air Express. Our revenues for Clean Air Express, I'm really proud about. We used to have only two colors. Wait, maybe, yeah, two colors. It was Measure A and fares. So this board, and that was borrowing from the future of Measure A. So we were overextending our budgets every year to pay for the Clean Air Express because the service was there and the demand was there. So we were providing a higher level of service to meet that demand. This board has directed me to diversify Clean Air Express, to find other funding sources, and we have. We now are eligible for federal transit administration dollars, and we take advantage of that. We are applying for grants and getting formula money. We are also applying for state grants. I'm not done yet, yeah, to support Clean Air Express. And you can see the sales tax measure is now 28%, where it was more like 75. The fare revenues continues to be a strong revenue, and it may not be as high as it used to be. We used to be like at a 40, or like over 50% fare box recovery ratio. I think we're now down to like 30 or 40, but it's still very strong in transit standards. Okay. Moving on to our expenses, the Clean Air Express is pretty straightforward. We have some staff support, but the majority of the budget goes to the operating expenses of the buses and the drivers and the maintenance of those buses and the fuel and what have you. So small dedicated $300,000 to staff, and the remaining budget is for implementing the service. And I just want to do a little plug. This past year, we did add a midday connecting route, and that's going very well. It gives the riders an option to get to and from North County and South County when they are working, and it's also meeting a transit need that we were not meeting in the past for just regular people that are trying to get to and from their daily activities. Okay, moving on. I'd like to give this little reminder of what Measure A is all about and the three buckets that we have for Measure A. As you know, 13.4% goes to the 101 HOV projects and the parallel projects associated with that. But the other two pots of money are going to North County, 43.3%, and the South Coast, 43.3%. And the percentages of how that 43.3% is divided for North and South differs based on the priorities of North and South. And that continues on. So we are honoring this Measure A and what was approved by the voters, and it continues every year. Moving forward, what we call is our capital program. So Measure A is the majority source of, well, excuse me, I stand corrected. It is not the majority source of this funding. It's only 22% of our capital program. We are using Measure A to leverage state and federal dollars into the region to support this capital program. It's doing its job. This is what we advertised when we asked voters to pass Measure A, saying we're going to bring in more dollars based on our local contribution, and it's come to pass. So we are proposing some of our fund balance. That's mostly on the 101 project that we've been collecting all along. We're going to use some of that balance to finish the 101. The 101 is almost done, and continue that on. But again, the state and federal resources are in the budget, and this also includes the probably not, because I was thinking the 135-101 interchange project, it wouldn't come through our budget. So that does not include that, but that's another project that we have going forward. So here are the projects that are going forward. It's a long list, and you can see the large dollar amounts that are happening and what we're getting done. Again, we're a small agency that does big things. So if you have any questions on those projects, I'd be happy to answer them, but $75 million worth of projects are getting done in Santa Barbara County through SBCAG. So in summary, we're doing well. I'm really proud of the organization. I'm proud of the staff. Thank you for giving me the resources to hire such quality people. We've done a great job in recruiting this past few years, and I feel like we're a solid team. And with the board's cooperation and support, we're able to do what we're told to do. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions for staff at this time from Santa Barbara? Director Perotti.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Director Kern, for an excellent report and and your staff for all the hard work that they all do at putting this all together, so thank you. And I hate to add more to the list, and I'm not sure that this is the correct time, but I'm wondering if for consideration, maybe in 2027, that we put something on for the 101, a comprehensive corridor study, especially certain areas like from Fairview to Winchester, and look at especially with all the new growth coming, it's a problematic now, but it's going to become worse. So is that a possibility? I guess I'm seeking advice from you and my colleagues, whether that's
so what we've done in the past, and I just want to educate the board, we have had a request for additional planning studies along the way. We just completed the 166 study, and that was requested through this process, through the OWP process. We're just now starting the 135 study, and again, it was 2 years ago that was requested. And the last year, the Lompoc Valley study was requested, and we applied for a grant, and I'm pretty sure we're going to get it, but we don't know yet. So this is the process. So yes, the answer to your question, yes, this is an appropriate time. So what the process is my recommendation to the board is you direct staff to apply for a planning grant. The state has every year there's a process where we apply for these type of special studies, especially when it's on a state highway system. It really does make sense for the state to help pay for that rather than it all being on a local dime. So my request to the board would be to direct staff to pursue a planning grant. We would submit that grant probably in the summer, fall timeframe of this fiscal year, and that's fairly easy. It doesn't, we can add a task to a work element to do that. And then we'd know about this time next year whether we got that grant and would it be incorporated into the next year's OWP. So it's always a years in arrears for these types of studies to get kicked off. So thank you for the comment, and if the board is okay with that, I will add that to our task to apply for a grant.
As someone who experiences that commuting, for going to my job, it's getting tough up there. So yes, I think it's a timely time. So I would be of support of that. Is the board open to supporting this, giving direction to staff? Okay, speak now, forever hold your peace. Sounds like, there you go, Director Perotti. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Did you have anything else for your comments or questions for staff? All right. Any other questions for staff at this time? Any questions from Santa Maria?
Yeah, I did have a question. In the presentation, you talked about the increase of the staff. They got a 3% COLA, 2% merit increase, but then you said if they are tapped out, they don't receive it. What does that mean, tapped out?
We have a salary schedule that was adopted by the board when we did our salary survey, and there's 5 steps for each staff when they start employment at SBCAG. So they're eligible for merit increases every year, and that's a 5% merit increase. They're 5 steps of 5% each. So the COLA is something that's applied agency-wide, and it's based on cost of living. It's basically to assure that our salaries are still competitive and still have the same spending power as they did the prior year. So the
I understand that.
Yeah. But the merit increases.
I don't want to hold you up too much.
Sure.
The question was, what does it mean if they're tapped out? Is there a ceiling that they hit? 'Cause
yes.
I know we're into lunchtime, so I just want to.
Yes, there is a
that's my
ceiling.
focus.
There is a ceiling that they hit, but that COLA will increase that ceiling every year it's implemented. But yes, so there is a 5-step salary schedule, and there are a majority of our staff are at the top level.
And so when they tapped out, what don't they get?
We still do evaluations every year. They're just not eligible for a merit increase.
Okay. And there's a number that you have where they're considered tapped out that moves every year?
The COLA will increase that dollar amount that they get in their salary, and that also moves with the salary schedule. So we'll basically have a new salary schedule if the board approves the COLA. But and all employees will be eligible to receive that 3%. I mean, it's just a blanket increase of salaries.
Thank you. I just wanted to know what tapped out meant when you were talking about the salaries. I appreciate your answer.
Yeah, topped out.
Thank you.
Topped out, not tapped. Top.
Oh, topped out. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Well, and then we'll see if there are any public comment here.
Yes.
If there are any attendees on Zoom who wish to speak, would you please use the raise hand feature and I will call upon you. I did not receive any paper request to speak forms, and there are no attendees on Zoom who wish to speak.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation, Director Kern. We really appreciate that. And looks like it's this presentation only, so no action required. We will now, oh, you don't get too much of a break. We'll now move to your Executive Director report.
I do like to give my presentations up there, but this is just my normal report. So we're coming back here. Just real quick, we had a successful legislative day in Sacramento with our Central Coast partners yesterday. We met with various legislators and Secretary Tokes O'Mashakin, and just showing our partnership, and our conversations included SB 375 reform, replacement of the gas tax, and protecting final unappropriated amounts of transit funding that hasn't happened yet at the statewide level. But I want to take some time to honor one of my employees. 20-year anniversaries don't happen very often at SBCAG, and today I want to recognize, hope he's still here. He's not. Fred Luna, but I'm going to recognize him anyway, because he wasn't at the... Okay, so... Yeah, Fred Luna is recognized Fred Luna for being on the staff for 20 years. He didn't know I was going to do this. His anniversary was actually in January, and so here we are. So for Fred, the impact of transportation projects is measured not just in lanes and schedules, but in the lives that are changed and lives that are lost. Early in his career, while working on the Highway 101, State Route 154, North Junction interchange, Fred met a local dad who had lost his son at that intersection. That relationship had a lasting impression, defining Fred's approach to public works projects. It shaped not only how he builds projects, but why. As SBCAG's Director of Project Delivery and Construction, Fred has been at the center of delivering some of Santa Barbara County's most complex and consequential regional transportation projects. He is known for his steady leadership, direct communication, and deep commitment to getting the details right, while never losing sight of the people and communities whose projects are meant to serve. With a career rooted in engineering and shaped by collaboration, integrity, and hard work, Fred has earned the trust of partners across the region and helped guide projects from early planning through construction and completion. So please join me in honoring Fred Luna for his 20 years of service with SBCAG. Thank you, Fred.
I won't say much, and I wasn't expecting that, but I knew I had my 20th anniversary. I didn't know that, so you caught me in the hallway. I was, always work, right? So, thank you, Margie. Thank you for your leadership, and I appreciate the board, or all the board members I've worked under for over the 20 years. So maybe I should figure that out sometime, but appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's my report.
All right. We'll now move to Caltrans Director report from Jason Wilkinson, Deputy District Director.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair Silva and the Board of Directors. My name is Jason Wilkinson. I'm the Deputy District Director over the Environmental Program at Caltrans. And today I'm here on behalf of Scott Eads, our Director. I have a couple updates, and if you have any questions on anything, please let me know. I have an update. Caltrans crews began paving operations north of Vandenberg Village on Monday, March 16th. A daytime closure from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. of one lane of northbound Highway 1 between Constellation Road and Santa Lucia Canyon Road will be in place through Friday, March 27th. Also on Highway 1, earlier this week, the northbound turn pocket onto Santa Lucia Canyon Road was closed but has since reopened. And those are the only updates I have this morning.
Thank you very much. Any questions at this time? Any questions in Santa Maria? All right.
No, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Moving right along. We'll now go to our committee updates. We'll start with the CRCC board meeting. Director Brown, any updates?
was nothing that was that significant. Aaron was with me at that meeting in San Luis Obispo, and steady as she goes with trains and the like. So nothing great.
Okay, we'll go to CalCog Regional Leadership Forum and Board Meeting from Director Patino, who's not here, so we probably pass on for that. Okay, moving on to the CalVans Board Meeting, which Director Kern will be providing on behalf of Chair Nelson.
Yes. Mr. Chairperson, members of the board, last week on Thursday, March 12th, the California Van Pool Authority held its March Board of Directors meeting. In addition to the regular updates, the agenda was a series of items related to funding and budget performance issues. Year over year, CalFans has experienced an overall decrease in billable mileage and revenues, while at the same time, expenditures have increased. This is partly due to escalating project costs, but also due to ongoing increases in operation expenses like fuel and insurance. To address this, the board was presented with various options and policy considerations for both short-term and long-term relief. For example, the board took action on 2 items: approve and update the billing terms and payment schedules for CalVans customers to ensure all costs are being captured, as well as incentivize prompt payments that have not been happening. And they also approved an emergency rate increase to address the escalating fuel costs. This likely is especially timely given the latest global rate increases. CalVans was also presented with the concept of implementing member agency dues. This item was not acted upon, and as a follow-up, their staff is going to be reaching out and bringing back more information at its next meeting. And other policy considerations was a short-term loan and long-term funding considerations, such as seeking a potential loan from an agency or applying for Federal Transit Administration funding, which is currently used by our transit operators. SBCAG is reviewing the options and will be meeting with the other member agencies and CalVans staff to discuss ways to address these long-term funding concerns. And the next CalVans meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April 9th at 10 a.m. So that completes the report.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to the LoSAN Board Meeting with Director Perotti.
Oops. Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. We had our meeting on March 16th. For LoSAN, and we discussed our annual business plan, which was approved by the board. We also spoke about ridership on the train is up by 8.5%. That's all good. We did a capital program update. A lot of things in the works right now from on the whole corridor. A lot of plans, a lot of projects have been complete, and there's still a lot more to do. There's no meeting in April, so we'll come back in May. But I don't know. I can't say an exact date, but the expanded rail service is happening fairly soon. Ms. Kern, do you want to say anything? I'm afraid.
Beginning of May.
Beginning of May.
On a Monday. So let's go with that.
Okay. All right. So we're all excited about getting that rolling. Thank you. End of report.
Thank you very much. And then we'll move, I know we're close on time, so we'll move to any 1-minute reports. I'll first check with Santa Maria. Any 1-minute reports up in Santa Maria?
No, we're good here. Thank you.
All right, and then we'll bring it back for Santa Barbara. Any 1-minute reports? I will take the liberty of actually giving one quick one of, as someone who got to attend the Sacramento Legislative Day with Director Kern and Sarkis and with Maya, you can often not realize the level of excellence you're dealing with until you see them in the field. And the fact that the reputation precedes, we are very well represented. And to see the leadership that you've provided that is outside the county and into this very regional aspect, I was very impressed to see how much you guys were able to pull off and all the work you put in for that. And thank you for always being at the forefront of making sure our county is always looking pristine with how they're regarded throughout the state. So thank you for that. If there's nothing else, we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting. The next meeting will be April 16th, 2026 in Santa Maria. And thank you all for being here. Have a great day.
Thank you.